Alright, so here we are with Unit 11, Lesson 10, and we're on to the next compound. We're going to look at alcohols. This is going to take us a little bit of time, so let's quickly run through alcohols. If you remember back when we looked at Table R, what distinguishes an alcohol from any other compound is that it contains what's called a hydroxyl group as the functional group. It's an OH. So what we've done is we've removed one or more of the hydrogens from a hydrocarbon and have replaced it with one or more OHs. We now have an alcohol. Alcohols all end in the letters OL, the names. And when you're naming an alcohol, just like when you named a halide, you have to indicate where the functional group is along the carbon chain. In other words, what carbon is the OH or are the OHs attached to if there's more than one. Couple of things to remember: alcohols are not bases, so they are non-electrolytes. What you have to be careful of is that sometimes these are confused with organic acids because organic acids also have an OH, but remember, if you look back at Table R, organic acids also have another oxygen. Let's do the first one. So let's break it into two parts. First thing is, if you see this name, two things should jump out at you. First of all, you see it ends in OL. That tells you that it is an alcohol. Next, you see it says propane. That tells you that there's a 3-carbon chain, and they're all single bonds between the carbons because it ends in AN. And just put the dashes around it, making sure that you have all the necessary bonds. You don't have to write in the hydrogens. The 1 is telling you that the OH, the function group, is attached to the first carbon. So it could be this carbon or it could be this carbon. Either way, it's the first carbon. So I'm going to put it here. And it doesn't matter if I put it here, here, or here. It's the first carbon. So I'm going to put it here. And remember, the rest of these would all be hydrogens. That would be 1-propanol with an OL. Second, now they give you, instead of a name, a structural formula. So now you'd have to use Table R and say, okay, it has an OH. So I'm going to go back to Table R and I'm going to say, okay, which of those has an OH? Only one oxygen and a hydrogen. Now, normally the hydrogen is written with the oxygen, so it would most likely be written this way. As soon as you determine it's an alcohol, you know it's going to end in OL. Next, you're going to figure out the parent chain. The longest chain is 4 carbons, so this is going to have butanol. Now I have to figure out, well, what carbon is this OH attached to? If I number it in this direction, this would be the first, the second, the third carbon. If I number it in this direction, it would be on the second carbon. So I'm going to number it so it gives it the lowest number possible. So this would be 2-butanol. And that is, in essence, how you name relatively simple alcohols. Of course, it can get more complicated than that because you can have more than one OH group. You can have 2, you can have 3. It also, as you see here, it talks about things like primary, secondary, and tertiary alcohols. They never ask about, you're never going to see those terms, primary, secondary, or tertiary alcohols. So I'm just going to ignore those, and I'm just going to quickly run through the examples and forgetting about the whole primary and secondary and just doing them as an example. So here we have 1-pentanol. So let's cross these out, primary, secondary. 1-pentanol means that you have a 5-carbon chain. These are all H's, and you do have to put all the dashes. You don't necessarily have to write the H's, but you do have to write the dashes. Okay. Now, the OL tells you it's an alcohol, and the alcohol functional group, the OH, is on the first carbon. So again, like the previous one, I could put it here, or I could put it here. I'm going to put it, forget that dash, I'm going to put it here, just to make it a little different. That is 1-pentanol. Let's take a look at the next one. Alright, we're going to skip because you're not going to see those. Let's do the third one. And remember, you don't have to worry about tertiary or secondary or primary. So we're going to worry about that. We'll do this. So now this is a little different. Not only is it an alcohol, but it has another branch, it has another functional group. So again, ignore the first part and just look at the 2-propanol. It has 3 carbons in it because it says propane. And the 2 is telling me that the OH group is on the second carbon, which means it's either here or here. I'm going to put it here, OH. So we're done with the first part, but now we got to deal with this. It's telling me that I have a methyl group on the second carbon, which means I have to put a carbon and 3 more H's down here. That is 2-methyl 2-propanol. Now here's where you get into the alcohols that have more than one OH. And really the only difference is it still ends in OL, but because it has two OHs, you have to put DI in front of the OL. And if it has three OHs, you would put TRIOL. So let's quickly run through it. First thing is you notice it has DIOL, and especially the OL, and it has ethane, so that's simply just a very simple two-carbon chain. Okay. Here's the second carbon. Here are the bonds to the H's. And we have two OHs, one on the second and one on the first carbon. It doesn't matter where I put them. I'm going to put one here and one here. I could have put them both here. I could have put one here and one here, or one here, one here. Either way, there's one on the first carbon and one on the second carbon. Relatively simple, right? Next one is a trihydroxy alcohol. Trihydroxy simply means that there's just three OHs. So I'm going to put, and it's based on propane, so it's one carbon, two carbons, three carbons, and here are the dashes. Okay, I have OHs on, basically it's one OH on each of the carbons. Again, it doesn't matter where on the OH. I could put one OH here, I could put one here, and one here. Doesn't really matter. And that's how you name alcohols. And again, you don't have to worry about primary, secondary, tertiary alcohols. And I don't think you're going to see the terms dihydroxy or trihydroxy, but you do have to know how to name these other alcohols. And that's it for